What starts as polite smiles can quickly shift into something sharper, and on this particular Thursday morning, that's exactly what happened. The studio lights were warm, the cameras already rolling, and the atmosphere buzzed with quiet anticipation. Behind the glass, producers whispered instructions into headsets. Camera operators fine-tuned their angles. Makeup artists made last-minute touch-ups. Every detail was under control, or so they thought. This wasn't just another guest. Weeks of scheduling calls, emails, and negotiations had gone into booking her. Her team had been crystal clear. Stick to the approved talking points. Safe topics only, her latest charity initiatives, women's empowerment projects, and a few light, personal stories. No royal drama. No marriage questions. No digging into the past. At 8:15 a.m., she walked in. Every step was deliberate. An ivory blazer draped perfectly over beige trousers, hair swept into a flawless low bun. Her makeup caught the light without a single shadow out of place. Her posture radiated confidence, and just a hint of distance. She smiled as she shook the host's hand, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The opening minutes went as expected. They spoke about her foundation's work, supporting women entrepreneurs, improving education for young girls, pushing for sustainable solutions. Her words were smooth, polished, and precise. It was the kind of safe, practiced interview her team had wanted. Then the host decided to step off script. "Your foundation's work is getting a lot of positive attention," he began. "But many people are wondering, do you see yourself returning to the UK anytime soon?" The smile froze. "Whether I go to the UK or not is entirely my decision," she replied, her tone calm but clipped. "It's interesting that it's still such a topic of conversation." He kept his voice steady. "People are curious because of your history with the royal family. It's a natural question." Her arms folded slightly. "Perhaps your viewers should focus more on issues in their own country." The words were light, but the edge in her voice was unmistakable. Something shifted in the air. The host pressed again, gently but firmly. "Your departure from the royal family is still one of the most discussed events in recent history. Some debate whether you and your husband left on your own or were pushed out." Her head tilted. Her gaze sharpened. "Pushed out? I can't believe you'd use that word. We made our choice. And I'm not here to rehash tabloid headlines, though I suppose that's more entertaining than real work, isn't it?" His smile stayed polite, but his voice had a new weight. "My job is to ask the questions people at home want answered. Headlines or not, it's part of the bigger picture." She crossed her legs, looking briefly up at the ceiling before meeting his eyes again. "Then perhaps your bigger picture needs some reframing." The next question went even further. "There's been a lot of speculation about your marriage," he said. "Some outlets suggest there have been recent challenges. Is there any truth to that?" Her lips curved into something between a smile and a smirk. "I don't live my life based on tabloid fiction, and maybe you shouldn't either." "I'm only asking because it's been widely reported," he said carefully. "And I'm telling you," she cut in sharply, "my marriage is not your concern. If your producers think this is the best way to fill airtime, maybe they should rethink their priorities." From the side, another voice, a co-host, tried to step in. "Maybe we could go back to your charity work." She shook her head slightly. "Oh, I'm happy to talk about my charity work. But clearly, that's not what this is really about." The host's voice was calm, but the steel was there now. "We're here for an open conversation. These questions aren't meant to be disrespectful." She gave a short laugh, the kind that sounds like a dismissal more than amusement. "Disrespectful? No. Just a little beneath what I'd hoped for." The words landed like a pin drop in a silent room. On the other side of the glass, producers exchanged tense glances. In the host's earpiece, a voice urged him to bring the temperature down, steer the segment back to safer ground. But the tension was already in the air, visible on screen, almost tangible to anyone watching at home. What had started as a warm routine morning segment had turned into something else entirely, a polite standoff wrapped in smiles, unfolding live in front of millions. The polite tone was slipping away, and both of them knew it. The smiles were still there, but they were thinner now, stretched over something sharper. The host leaned forward slightly, keeping his voice light. "Let's talk about what life looks like for you now, away from royal duties, away from palace walls. What's a normal day like for you?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she tilted her head, glanced toward the cameras, and said, "Normal? That's a funny word coming from someone who was asking me about royal duties 5 minutes ago." The audience gave a polite laugh, but the host didn't respond to the joke. "I'm just curious how you've adjusted," he said. "You've built a new life, new home, new projects. What does that look like?" Her voice was sweet on the surface, but there was steel underneath. "It looks exactly how I want it to look, which is something I'm not sure you'd understand when your schedule is decided by producers talking in your ear." One of the co-hosts shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Another tried to jump in with a lighter question about her recent trip to California's wine country. She smiled politely, gave a short answer, and then turned right back to the host, almost daring him to keep going. He did. "There's been ongoing public debate about whether you and your husband will ever return to formal royal duties. Is that door still open?" She shook her head. "I'm not here to feed gossip cycles. The monarchy can manage perfectly fine without my daily schedule making headlines." The room went still for a second. The host pushed again, carefully. "Some might say it's not gossip. It's part of an ongoing public story you were a central figure in." Her lips curved into that half-smile again. "Some might say a lot of things, but that doesn't make them right or relevant." The tone had shifted now. She wasn't just guarded, she was openly dismissive. He tried another angle. "There's been talk in the media about your relationship with your husband. Life in the public can put a lot of pressure on a marriage. How do you respond to people who wonder if it's taken a toll?" She leaned back, crossing her arms. "I respond by wondering why anyone thinks my marriage is an acceptable topic for casual morning TV. What's next? My grocery list? My Netflix queue?" He smiled tightly. "I'm asking because it's been widely reported and because people are curious." "And I'm telling you," she cut in, "people's curiosity doesn't define my boundaries. Maybe you should try that sometime." Another co-host leaned toward her mic. "Okay, maybe let's bring it back to your new project." But she wasn't finished. "No, I think it's interesting. Apparently, my marriage is more exciting than the thousands of people our programs are helping every year." The host's voice stayed steady, but his patience was thinning. "I think we can talk about both, the work you're doing and the context in which you're doing it. That's part of telling the whole story." She gave a soft laugh and shook her head. "The whole story according to you, maybe. But I've lived it, and I can assure you your version leaves out quite a bit." He adjusted his posture, leaning forward just enough to make it clear he wasn't stepping back. His eyes stayed on hers, calm but deliberate, like a chess player studying the board after an unexpected move. "Let's talk about something you've mentioned before," he said. "You've spoken about feeling unwelcome in the UK after stepping back from royal duties. Do you think that feeling would still be there if you returned?" Her head tilted again, her expression caught between disbelief and disdain. "Do I think I'd get a warm welcome? This isn't a family barbecue, Nate. We're talking about an entire institution that made it clear from day one where I stood, or didn't stand." "Still," he said, "you've built a public image around compassion and bridging divides. Wouldn't returning, even briefly, be an opportunity to show that in action?" She gave a sharp, quick laugh. "Bridge building requires two sides willing to meet in the middle. You can't build a bridge if the other side keeps lighting matches." The audience let out a low ooh at the sting in her words. The co-hosts exchanged glances, silently urging him to move on, but he continued. "There have also been reports that you and your husband were, in a sense, pushed out of the royal circle. How accurate is that from your perspective?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You want my perspective? Fine." It wasn't a gentle nudge. It was a very clear message. You're not welcome unless you play by our rules. And I've never been the kind of person who makes herself smaller to fit someone else's comfort zone. "That's a strong statement," he said carefully. "It's a true one," she replied without hesitation. The air in the room felt tighter now. The co-host tried again to steer the conversation toward safer ground, but she wasn't breaking eye contact. Then came his next pivot. "There's also been speculation," he began slowly, "about the pressures your public life puts on your marriage." Her expression didn't soften. If anything, it sharpened. The tension was no longer under the surface. It was right there on camera, unfolding in real time, impossible to edit out. The studio lights were warm and bright, but the air felt cold. The tension between the interviewer and the guest had been building for minutes, each exchange sharper than the last. "Some people wonder if all that pressure has put a strain on your marriage," the interviewer began carefully. The guest leaned forward suddenly, her eyes locked on his. "People wonder. That's how it always starts, isn't it? People wonder, then it becomes a headline, and before you know it, that headline becomes a story everyone believes. And now here you are, repeating it." "I'm not repeating anything," he said, his tone steady but with a faint edge. "I'm asking what the audience is already talking about. That's my job." "And my job," she shot back, "is to decide which questions matter and which ones are just gossip dressed up as journalism." His jaw tightened for the briefest second before he smiled. "And yet, here we are." The audience murmured quietly. Even through the cameras, the tension was obvious. One of the other hosts tried to step in. "Let's take a breath here. We don't want to lose sight of why she's here." But the guest didn't let go. "No, it's fine. I can handle tough questions. I just find it strange that whenever I sit down to talk about community work and charity, the conversation always slides back to royal politics and tabloid rumors." "Sometimes," the interviewer said evenly, "the public context is part of the story. Whether you like it or not, you're not just a private citizen. The way you left the royal family, the public interest in your marriage, your position in the media, these all shape how people see your work." "Or maybe," she countered, her voice smooth but with a sting in it, "it's time the media realized they're framing it wrong." Silence hung for a beat. The control room debated whether to cut to commercial, but they could feel the moment growing. The interviewer adjusted his jacket and leaned in. "I've interviewed a lot of public figures. Most understand that questions about their public image aren't personal attacks. But with you, every topic is met with defensiveness or dismissal." She crossed her legs, feigning amusement. "Maybe that's because most of your guests aren't tired of hearing the same tired questions over and over. You think you're revealing something new, but you're just recycling old headlines." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "I've tried to keep this professional. I've given you space to explain your point of view and talk about your work. But it's becoming clear you're not here for a conversation. You're here to control the narrative and shut down anything that doesn't fit it." "Control the narrative," she repeated with a mocking tone. "That's rich coming from the media." "No," he replied calmly but firmly. "What's rich is someone sitting on national television, claiming the media is the enemy, while at the same time booking themselves on every major platform to promote their image. What's rich is saying you want privacy, but building a career on telling and selling your side of the story." Gasps rippled through the audience. "So now you're going to tell me what my career is about," she said sharply. "Maybe next you'll tell me what my marriage is like, too." "You brought up your marriage earlier by shutting down the question," he said. "And honestly, the way you've handled this interview is exactly why some people see you as out of touch. You're not having a discussion. You're lecturing. And when someone challenges you, you get dismissive and condescending." The set felt smaller now, the air heavier. Even the other hosts stayed silent. "Let's be honest," the interviewer continued. "You married into one of the biggest global brands in the world. Now you use that name whenever it benefits you, but you don't want the responsibility that comes with it." For the first time, she looked genuinely stunned. Her mouth opened slightly before she quickly masked it with indignation. "Excuse me." "You heard me," he said. "This show is for conversations, not coronations. If you can't answer straightforward questions without insulting the interviewer, maybe this isn't the place for you." The silence was absolute. The hum of the lights seemed louder than usual. "So what?" she asked coldly. "You're telling me to leave?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "Because this isn't going anywhere useful, and the audience deserves more than watching a guest sneer through a segment." The audience gasped loudly. She glanced toward them, her voice icy. "This is unbelievable. I came here to talk about important issues, and instead I get ambushed and insulted." He stood up from his chair, calm but decisive. "You came here for publicity. Let's not pretend otherwise. And you got it, just not the kind you wanted." She stood up quickly, her chair sliding back with a faint scrape against the studio floor. Her hands went to the microphone clipped to her clothing, unclipping it with sharp, deliberate movements. "You know what?" she said, her voice firm but carrying a tremor of anger. "I don't have to sit here and be disrespected by someone who clearly doesn't understand what it's like to be under the kind of constant public attention I've had to deal with. I've faced bigger, harsher situations than this. And I'll still be here long after this interview is forgotten." Her heels struck the floor in hard, echoing clicks as she turned toward the edge of the set. Security staff, who had been watching from the sidelines, shifted subtly closer. No one touched her, but the tension was obvious. Just before she disappeared behind the curtain, she stopped. She turned her head back toward the stage, her eyes narrowed in one last calculated moment. "Good luck with your ratings," she said coldly. "You're going to need them." The interviewer didn't flinch. "Don't worry," he replied evenly. "After today, I think we'll be just fine." With that, she walked off, her exit swift and unbroken. The audience remained silent for a beat, as though trying to process what they had just witnessed. Two of the co-hosts, who had earlier tried to mediate the conversation, were now frozen in their seats, exchanging uneasy glances. The cameras lingered on the interviewer for a fraction of a second too long, his calm expression hiding the undercurrent of what had just happened. Then, without warning, the show cut to a hastily arranged commercial break. In the control room, the producers spoke quickly over one another, trying to decide how to handle the aftermath. But the truth was, the moment had already happened. It was already television gold, the kind of scene that gets clipped, shared, and replayed across every social media platform within minutes. And replayed it was. The clip spread faster than they could keep track, with thousands of viewers weighing in online. Some said the interviewer had been right to press harder when the conversation became tense, arguing that public figures should expect difficult questions. Others thought the guest was right to walk away, saying the questions had been loaded and the tone too confrontational. Within hours, hashtags about the clash were trending, and debates spilled into the comment sections of news articles, fan pages, and discussion boards. Was this an important moment of journalistic honesty? Or was it a case of crossing a line for the sake of drama? Either way, the incident was now part of talk show history, a tense, unforgettable exchange that would be remembered not just for what was said, but for how it ended. The studio slowly reset itself after the break. Chairs were straightened, the air was cleared, and the next segment went ahead as planned. But the energy wasn't the same. Everyone knew they had just been part of a moment that would be dissected for weeks. Backstage, the guest left through a private exit, avoiding any further media questions. The interviewer returned to the desk, greeted the audience with a composed smile, and moved on to the next topic as if nothing had happened. But the truth was, they both knew the conversation was far from over, it was just beginning somewhere else. And for the viewers at home, it became another reminder of how quickly a simple interview can explode into something no one saw coming. What do you think? Was the interviewer right to shut things down? Or was the guest right to walk out? Share your thoughts below. I want to hear your take. And if you enjoy seeing breakdowns of tense, unexpected live TV moments, make sure you like this post, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. In the world of live television, you never know when a polite conversation might turn into a headline-making clash.